2024 is here, which means XDefiant is also here. Soon. Surely, right? Anyways, that means there's no better time to talk about the game and what could be in its future. Today, we're covering smokes. Trust me, you need to hear this. Ensuring the addition of smokes to XDefiant, no matter how they're implemented, is balanced, the mechanic must be fundamentally designed with that in mind. Therefore, designing solid, server-side, or at least non-particle-based smokes should provide a consistent experience for players throughout visibility-based interactions, due to everyone perceiving the same exact smoke. By generating smokes client-side, ratty one-way angles are heavily enabled and players may also run into issues like this,
מה אחי, הוא רואה אותי דרך הסמוק. מה נסגר עם המשחק הזה?
הרגת אותו?
לא, הוא רואה אותי
לא,
דרך
עומר.
הסמוק.
מישהו אחר.
מישהו אחר?
מה? איך הוא לא מת?
this,
There he is, there's. Yep. On your right. On your right, on your right.
I didn't see him.
There he is, there's. Yep. On your right. On your right, on your right.
or whatever this is supposed to be. Next to address is the accessibility of said smokes. Do you want it to be faction specific, leaning further into MOBA / rock paper scissors balancing, which adds depth to the decision making of the game, but may lead to lowering necessary mechanical skill if certain utility becomes too important, outweighing the value of good gunplay. However, by making smokes specific to Defiance, you can ensure a larger diversity of Defiants are picked as the game flows through a series of counterpicks to disable incoming utility and enable new strategies. In addition to this, you can create much more unique smokes, rather than there only being one type of smoke in the entire game. If the game were to maintain 4v4 competitive matchmaking, it's likely that smokes would have to be a strategic sacrifice in place of healing as secondary support abilities. An implementation like this would prevent losing ult charge for wanting to go for smokes, allowing more freedom to switch between the two during a match. However, as we know, the current competitive format is not set in stone. If we were to introduce 5v5 comp, it's possible that we could introduce a dedicated smoke role or lean further into a hard support role in general, with utility that gets more value through staying alive, like DeadSec, rather than taking fights constantly as current supports like Libertad function. Additionally, by tying smokes to an ability, it would be easier to balance the quantity of smokes that appear in a game. If you want to spam an excessive amount of smokes, you will be missing other key utility that locks you out of a variety of win conditions, resulting in a worse overall composition. Smokes, when implemented as a Defiant ability, should generally be balanced along this scale. First, the impact from casting. Does the smoke occupy a large area? What is its general visibility? Can the smoke be displaced at all or cancelled out in some way? Second, the effective uptime. It's pretty straightforward, the uptime versus the downtime. The cooldown versus its active duration. Third, unique and alternative effects. Does the smoke provide any additional statistical value to the team, such as providing debuffs to enemies or buffs to allies? And each ability should have a defined balance point. If a kit is fundamentally valuable in the game, the balance point is the ideal part of the kit that needs manipulation in order to keep all Defiants within the same power scale. Now let's analyze some smoke concepts and place them within this spectrum to further contextualize it. To start with, we'll steal Brim Smoke. It has 3 charges, entirely passive deployment, which in a game like XDefiant seems extremely strong. We'll talk about this a little more. And technically they don't have a cooldown because of the way Valorant works, but for the sake of this, we'll just make something up. We'll say it has a 15-second uptime and 20 seconds of cooldown per charge. So, to run these smokes through our scale, the impact from casting is about an 8 out of 10. It sufficiently locks down choke points in the map without dominating larger areas of space at all. The effective uptime, this is really where the balance point of a smoke like this would come in, because passive deployment in something like XDefiant seems extremely powerful, as most abilities require you to actively be in the fight to cast them currently. For unique and alternative effects, we'll give it like a 5 out of 10 because it has multiple charges. It has no other special effects, it doesn't debuff, it doesn't buff. Next, we'll move on to another one of my earlier examples, the Sense Wall. We'll say it has 1 charge, active deployment, and the cooldown due to this active deployment can be a bit more generous. So we'll say it has an uptime of about 8 to 10 seconds, and the cooldown will be about 12 to 15 seconds. The impact from casting, we're going to put at a 10 out of 10 here. Active deployment is, of course, very strong in its own ways, like passive deployment. And a wall smoke can both effectively stuff a choke like the orb smoke and slice up smaller areas of the map to create kill zones. This adds an insane amount of versatility. For the effective uptime, we're going to give it an 8 out of 10. Generally, that cooldown is going to cycle a lot more frequently than other ones we currently see in the game. For unique and alternative effects, to be honest, there's none, so we're just going to put it at 0. The balance point for this wall smoke could generally fall under 2 different categories. It could either be the impact from casting, which is the distance the wall covers, or its effective uptime. Next, we'll be borrowing Harbor's High Tide. It has 1 charge, passive deployment, and about 8 to 10 seconds of uptime and 20 to 25 seconds on cooldown. Impact from casting, we're going to put at 8 out of 10. This wall smoke maintains many benefits from the previous one, however, its passive casting puts it just below the sense wall. For effective uptime, we're going to put it at 3 out of 10. Due to its unique effects and generally high impact from casting, its effective uptime must be heavily reduced to compensate. For unique effects, we're going to put this at 8 out of 10. The wall does not have any intense or deep interactions, but will debuff enemies that pass through it and has its own unique deployment that allows you to manipulate the path of the wall. If we wish to make smokes so throwable, like flashes and grenades, it will likely lead to less faction diversity, but greater individual influence on a match. Need a smoke? Just equip one. Doesn't matter what faction you are. All that matters is your proximity to spawn. There is no true sacrifice to make, however, this will enable spam. No matter how we choose to access the smokes, there is a bottom line we can all benefit from. The addition of smokes should enable a considerable range of weapon picks, as smokes can be used to counter long oppressive sight lines dominated by LMGs, DMRs, and snipers on linear maps, like the beginning and end of Times Square, the final room in Meltdown, the last point of Midway, and the lethal head glitch on Zoo, as well as cut up smaller CQC spaces in zone control to enable specialist picks like shotguns to dominate the objective, adding more depth to the already existing lane-based map design. Smokes in arcade modes such as Domination and Hardpoint serve an even more unique purpose. Due to dynamic map control through constantly shifting spawns and objectives, smokes can quickly turn into a mind game of information denial, where teams can begin applying pressure not through acting, but by creating questions the enemy must sacrifice resources both in and out of game to answer, such as smoking off routes around the current objective in Occupy, forcing defenders to take the space or remain constantly aware of the potential attacker being located just behind it, ready to spring the moment the defender isn't. Similarly, as teams are rotating between hardpoints, smoking off along common rotations to once again force the enemy to either spend resources securing or clearing the space or gambling that there's no one ready to capitalize off the smoke. In Domination, you can deploy unique smoke setups that instill confusion, implying a fake objective execution that will never come, similar to Occupy, but instead getting value through forcing enemies' presence to be spread across larger areas of the map while enabling attackers to flood weak points created through this prodding. To condense all this information, a smoke fulfills the purpose of a creative form of space control, similar to, but not as oppressive as a phantom shield by nature of its non-existent visibility and bidirectional lack of protection. In addition, this can contribute to the overall identity of the game. With movement as fast as XDefiant and ability scaling at the degree of XDefiant, smokes would likely lead to very chaotic CQC fight breakdowns, isolating 1v1s and showing who is truly the better player mechanically. Ultimately, the implementation of smokes would serve as a great tool for harassing the enemy team and encouraging a gameplay loop that begins with utility trades, time, cooldown, and utility management, which then transitions into explosive, chaotic fights. Thanks for making it to the end of the video, but please don't click away just yet. I wanted to give an official introduction to XDefiant Central. XDefiant Central is a group project currently being led by my longtime teammate and friend Clue and I. Together we wish to share our passion of XDefiant through exploratory and informational videos about whatever we happen to find interesting at the time. So please, if there's anything about XDefiant that you find interesting, share it in the comments. I would love to hear what you all have to say, and if anything particularly catches my eye, I might end up making a video about it.